Between the two of them, the inside of Coates, Barker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Welcome, one and all, to the Powermax Super Touring Car Championship here at round 2 at Thruxton, the fastest circuit on the British calendar, whatever calendar it appears on, basically. It is absolutely frantic and phonetic, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it's going to crack on for this evening. However, first of all, we have to introduce both myself and my commentary partner in crime. Jack Oliphant is my name, and I'm joined alongside me, as ever, by Dave Marshall. Dave, how the devil are you?
Yeah, very good. It caught us a bit off guard there. I thought you introduced me as Jack Oliphant, and yeah, no, I'm doing very, very good. And as you say, here at Thruxton, probably one of the tracks that catches the majority of the people out. It appears relatively simple, but as you said, super high speed. And one of them tracks where if you start to get on the grass on the outside, it doesn't take any prisoners. And we've seen some huge shunts from here.
We have indeed, yeah. It's the round of 2s really today, because of course it is the second round. There are 2 championships. There are 2 championship protagonists in both of them as well, and obviously 2 commentators just to add to the 2s. But just to make it slightly awkward, there are 3 cars to choose from. You got the BMW, the Nissan, and the Volvo. Of course, we'll go through all the technical details when and if we have time. It's a very frantic evening if anybody has tuned in before. We are on, of course, Thruxton, 16th of November. Then we'll be going to Snetterton, Alton Park, Silverstone National, and Brands Hatch GP. There are 2 driver classes, unlike the usual system that VRRC have put out there before, a gold and a silver class. They both win similar prizes, both win exactly the same prizes, in fact. OBP hydraulic pedals for the overall winner in gold and the overall winner in silver. 2 BTCC VIP hospitality tickets for the second place in both classes. And in third, you get the Riggs Sim Race 3 chassis as well, which is a dynamite piece of kit. Driver of the round also wins a Powermax car balloting kit. And if you're old enough, that's very good. Otherwise, if you're slightly younger and you can't actually own a car yet, then you get to give it to your dad, which is exactly what Carl Felvers is doing for Christmas, I believe. So Donington National Round 1 saw Jordan Brennan take the most amount of points in the gold category. Mark Fletcher came home in second place, and Tom Dadswell rounded out the Altitude eSports podium in third as well. And like we mentioned, Carl Felvers on the right-hand side there, winning driver of the round, and you can see him yet again topping the silver category. He came home with the most amount of points, with Scott Thorne in second place and Paul Zanatachi in third. Really good evening from all 3 of those drivers. Really quite tough to choose the driver of the day between those 3, but Kyle ended up pipping us. So I believe before we get started, we'll go into qualifying or any opinion of Dave Marshall. We're first going to hear his lovely voice over a very quick lap time around Thruxton in the BMW.
So across the line at Thruxton here for round 2 of the Powermax Super Touring Car Championship, powered by VRRC in the BMW. So you can see it's turn 1, 5th gear, completely flat, down towards the first complex, super late on the brakes. So second gear, trying to unload this corner on too much here, so we open up the left-hander and get on the power, a little bit of oversteer. It's not too bad for a little bit of rotation, and opens up that right-hander there. Now into the fast sections, heading down towards Goodwood, a corner that I always associate as probably the trickiest corner where you can actually lose a lot of time. So you need to roll in a lot of speed, down one gear in this car, and just start to blend on as early as you dare. If you end up on that grass on that left hand side, because the track keeps turning right and away from you, you're going to really struggle to keep it out the wall and make it back onto the track. Completely flat through Church, making sure you get a nice and early apex there and just run the car out. And then this is probably the best overtaking opportunity on the track. Getting the slipstream of the car in front, super late on the brakes, in towards club, the last chicane. So yeah, I'm just going to select it down to second gear just to get the car turning a little bit, and then short shift into third, and then across the line, and hopefully that's enough to put it in first in the volley. Make sure you tune in at 7:15 on Tuesday nights on VRRC's Facebook and YouTube.
There we go, a hot lap by Dave, and you were just going through that, Dave, whilst obviously no one could hear us, just basically saying how fun it is to drive Thruxton around in the BMW specifically, but also the other two I'm sure will be a bit of a blast as well.
Yeah, they definitely are. The rear-wheel drive definitely adds a bit of that, a little bit more Larry character to a hot lap, but I'm sure you know fine well you and your brothers got plenty of experience regarding rear-wheel drive versus front-wheel drive. It doesn't always work out for the nicest experience on the very edge of the limit. You know, if the back end steps out in front-wheel drive, you normally rescue it with a bit of power, but rear-wheel drive is all about getting arrow commitment and just keeping it absolutely flat. And yeah, if it doesn't quite work out, sometimes it's not very forgiving at all.
Yeah, well, you mentioned my brother. Obviously, he did quite well here at Thruxton, but it was because he changed to the slicks, I believe it was, and it was a drying track. All of a sudden, he came into his own, but then it started just spitting a little bit, and the track very much came to the front-wheel drives again. I think Jake Hill ended up winning that one with a fantastic driver, has to be said as well. But the front-wheel drive, Volvo and Nissan probably would be favoured if we did have dynamic weather, but of course we don't have that here at VRRC, so
yeah,
the difference between front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive might not be so obvious, I imagine, but it's still going to be a bit of a test for these drivers to try and sort out, some cars are going to be quicker in some areas, other cars are going to be, so the rear-wheel drives are going to be quicker out the two chicanes, but the front-wheel drives might be quicker into them.
Yeah, so from just what I've found on the track, the Volvos tend to be a little bit quicker, and the Primera through the back section of track where it opens up a little bit more. But the Beamer, as you say, is really strong, coming out that first complex and getting on that power, and also out the last chicane, you can really open it up very quickly indeed. But also, I think this track's really going to highlight tyre wear. You know, these Volvos and the Primeras are pushing very good lap times at the moment. The Beamers are a little bit further down the table here. But I tell you what, especially Church, watching their tyre temps creep up and seeing that understeer start to come into the car, it makes it very hard to get them lap times to stay consistent. Whereas them Beamers, they wear them tyres more 50-50 front to back, and you'll find that car is stronger throughout the whole race distance. So interesting to see how that goes on. And let's not forget, Jack, you know, them Beamers off the line last round out, you know, you're talking 4 or 5 positions were made up just on the line alone down to turn 1. So we'll wait and see, but damage can be done here.
Yeah, it can be, but it is worth noting, obviously. We'll go through it as we go on boards about the fantastic track it is. I mean, I think you're pretty much flat for all bar 2, maybe 3 corners in these cars. But that doesn't make it any easier to actually get a lap time out of, and that is example on the left-hand side on your timing tower, really, with Jordan Brennan currently leading the way in not only the championship, but also this qualifying session. With only 5 minutes to go, we have joined it a little late, so we have missed a few of the flying laps, unfortunately. But Jordan Brennan in the gold category, and that's a huge hit by Nicky Taylor coming out of the final complex. That's not going to be, well, he'll be very pleased that he doesn't have to pay the damage for that, or indeed have to go off to the hospital, because that would be a big hit. Dave, but I believe we got a new sort of option for us, maybe having a chat to one of the drivers whilst they're actually driving. Yeah, we do. So we jump on board with Mark Fletcher. You can see here, all tucked in behind another Volvo here. But yeah, Mark, jumped on board with you. I mean, I take it Thruxton here, a little bit of strategy comes into it, and you're one of the few drivers on the grid that has them other drivers on your team that maybe help you get a little bit more straight line speed out of this car.
Yeah, I mean, we had a look at it. I mean, we're not gaining loads, but obviously me and Tom need to be somewhere near to each other. We're currently running, what, 5th and 6th? But yeah, look again, look, we ain't going to catch Brennan this evening. 12-2.
Yeah, I mean, it is a ridiculously good lap time. I mean, it's one of them tracks where you can see other drivers. Sometimes you just catch it lucky, don't you? Where you come on the straight, there'll be a driver either doing a slightly slower lap, or you never know, and catch that driver just in that sweet spot, and you can gain, 3 or 4 mile an hour down the straight. It can just work itself out.
Yeah, so we thought we'd just give each other, the best chance we could, So yeah, if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't. But we're doing all right. Everything's rocking and rolling here.
Well, you've got a time on the board. It's looking good so far, Mark. So I can see you just about to start a lap. So I'll let you get your head down, and good luck for it.
Perfect. Cheers, Dave. See you guys hopefully at the end of race 1.
And that was Mark Fletcher in good spirits, to be fair, by the sounds of it, Dave. And that was the first time we've ever pulled a driver in whilst live qualifying is going round. I would say he responded to that quite well, didn't he? He didn't seem frazzled, he didn't seem distracted or anything. He's out there putting good lap times in still. So, yeah, hopefully he found that informative. Hopefully everybody out there found it entertaining as well. But I thought that went quite well.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting. Actually, we've got another one here. Currently, we'll quickly jump on board with Kyle Felvis. He should able to hear us now as he just comes through the last chicane and sets a lap up. Kyle, you've put a good time already on the board. Sitting, looking like you're 4th in class at the moment. Very, very close to Nicky Taylor in front. Have you got a lap in yet that you're happy with, or you're not quite hooked up and think there's a little bit more left in it?
No, I think I've done a good lap. I've done quicker than I was doing in practice. It'd be nice to start ahead of Nicky Taylor, but I think I'm not going to be able to get that tiny little bit of time I need.
Yeah, I mean, you and Nicky, you've both done the academy together. You're probably 2 drivers that, talk quite a lot between each other and trust each other on grid. I take it this sort of helps when you've got them just in front of you to know that you can sort of work with them to really help get through the grid. Because I was just talking to Mark there, and slipstream around this track is absolutely huge, isn't it? So if you can work together and, put an attack on later in the race, it can really, really help you out.
Yeah, it'd be really useful if me and Mickey could work together and stay at the front of our class. Hopefully the races go well.
Well, hopefully they do. I'll let you go because I see you setting the lap up now. Good luck, and let's see if we can improve.
Thank you.
Carl Felvers there coming in to have a quick chat to us, just about cracking in the top 10. But of course, that's more overall. What he's going to be looking at is silver to gold. And we've had a little bit of a tinker, Dave, haven't we? I'm not going to take any credit for this because I wouldn't have a clue on how to do it. But because we were slightly struggling last week, weren't we, about who was gold, who was silver. And obviously, we want to make it as easy as possible to everybody at home watching. So on the very left-hand side, near where their position is on the timing tower, basically next to their name, you'll see that every single name starts with a G or it starts with an S. That doesn't mean that everybody so happens to be called Jeff or Susan. It just means that they're gold or silver. So you can see the top 3 are all gold. Jordan Brennan, Scott Bugner, and Webb. But then you go to 4th and you have Thorn. He is silver, so he's on pole for silver, if that makes sense as well. So you got a little bit of a clearer distinction for us and obviously everybody at home watching about who's in what category, which will make it a lot easier for all of us.
Yeah, and I did actually suspect this a little bit with Thruxton because it is exactly like you said before, a track where it is majority flat out, probably 80% of the track. You absolutely nailed on that throttle, and we're seeing some of them silver standard drivers just creeping up and mixing up that gold. So really, really interesting, and this could play havoc when it comes into the race regarding championship position, because some of them silver drivers might not be quite as quick and race trim as what the outright lap time is. So this could be really, really interesting and really crucial for some of the drivers trying to catch up some points in the championship.
As the checkered flag has dropped, then Jordan Brennan, Scott Bugner, Webb and Thorne are the top 4. They won't be improving on their times. However, if Dadswell and Sutton going to get a half-decent time, well, we could see a potential mix-up for maybe that top 4 yet to come. I think Dadswell, I'm just having a look if he's out there at the moment. He's not actually on my other time test. I can't see whether he's actually doing any decent sectors, but he's off the track anyway, going very slowly by the looks of it. So Dadswell won't be improving. Sutton hasn't. Zanatachi hasn't. Fletcher or Smith, but Nicky Taylor does improve and jumps everybody I just read out into 6th place, and he'll be, I'm sure, very happy with that. And I'm sure Carl Felvers, after jumping in and having a chat to us, won't be too happy with the fact that Taylor has jumped all those positions further ahead of them. But equally, he'll have to try and work hard for the race, which I'm sure he always does. But I believe, Dave, that we have a couple of drivers in the interview waiting room ready to have a chat with you.
We do indeed, so we'll go straight to our pole position sitter for Silver Class, and to be fair, a lot higher up than what we'd expect a Silver Class driver to be. 4th place overall on the grid, but Scott Thorne, pole lap for Silver Class, and a good few cars ahead of your nearest competitor. You've got to be fairly happy with that lap time.
I had no idea where that lap time come from. I was really struggling for the last chicane for the whole of practice, so I think I just took it a bit calmer than normal and it just came to me.
Well, as I say, it's a phenomenal lap time. Regarding race strategy, Nicky Taylor did just manage to put a lap in there at the end. That means he starts beside you. This is where it matters a little bit on your start. And how good is the start in these cars? Does it require much clutch control, or is it one of them where you sort of just dip the clutch in the car, does majority of the work for you?
I still not mastered the start. I didn't have a great one in the second race. I have a very heavy right foot, so I just have the the self-conscious thing of just slamming the foot to the floor. So I need to try and rein it in a little bit. But I'm just focusing on the Silver Championship really, rather than overall racing at the moment.
Well, it's definitely looking like a good start there, Scott. Good luck going forward into Thruxton. Let's see where you finish in race 1.
Thanks.
And we'll move forward onto our pole sitter overall, Jordan Brennan, with a 12.2. I mean, a fair, phenomenal lap time there. I take it was one of them hooked up laps that, you just want to get on the board and get that lap finished to make sure you get it on the board.
Yeah, it was a really good lap. I was sort of going around and looking at my delta, and it was sort of even. I was like, this ain't that good lap. And I just found it all in the back section, and it was just, I was like, need to get the chicane right and get it in.
Is it at all a worry that Scott Bugner is, alongside it in the Primera? The Primera is quite a strong car on the start in comparison to the Volvo. Does it worry you a little bit on that run down to turn 1, a little bit like what it was with Jack Mack and you last week?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I've not seen what the Primera starts like, so it's just going to be one of those. I'm just going to have to see what happens.
Well, we will see what happens indeed. Let's see if Scott can actually get a decent start in that Primera now. I've said it. Best of luck going forward into race 1, and stunning time there, Jordan, as well. So let's see how you get on, and we might be speaking to you after race 1.
Yes, thank you.
And that was Dave Marshall having a chat to our pole sitters tomorrow in the gold category, but also the silvers as well. So 2 very interesting races to be keeping an eye out on. And of course, 2 races to be keeping an eye out on today. This is only the first of 2. We will have a full reverse grid for the second race, both 20 minutes. So if you're used to watching the VRRC, then you'll pretty much know the format as it stands anyway, but it's always worth reminding everyone out there. So as the lights are about to come on, we're about to get racing. So we've got 3 golds, followed by Thorne, Dadswell, Taylor, Sutton, Zanatachi and Fletcher. The lights are coming on, the engine notes are rising, and we're going to have racing here on a Tuesday night for the first time in the Super Touring Championship, powered by VRRC, and it's a good start by Jordan Brennan. I think Scott Bugner may be under a little bit of pressure from Webb, but wide goes, that's not Nicky Taylor, is it? I'm not entirely sure who
Scott
that
Thorne.
is.
Scott Thorne, spinning across the track. And that's a huge collision, and who's that taken out? I think that might have taken out Ashley Beard. Yeah, so Ashley Beard, another driver that was actually looking relatively good for the race, is being taken out in turn 1. And also, that's a spinner there. Who's that? Is that
Luke Weston?
Luke Weston with a spin. In the BMW, this is one of them things. In the pack, if you get too greedy with that throttle, unlike a front-wheel drive where you get understeer, on them starting tyres, it can just catch you out, rotate the car, and then you end up backwards. Really unlucky there for Luke Weston.
It is indeed, but it's not unlucky for Jordan Brennan, is it? As Webb is trying to look for a move on Bugner at the inside of Church. It's a brave one. It's brave to also try and hold it on the outside, but they've both given each other so much racing respect. In fact, Webb gave Bugner so much respect. Dadswell has come into the picture as well and is potentially going to take third away from him. He has taken third away from him. He's going to not only settle for third, he's going to go for second into the complex. And he gets second place. No, he doesn't. He gets third place, sorry. No, actually, apologies. My pixelated screen has misled me there. Dave, you're going to have to just take over.
Yeah, so actually that was quite a major thing. Matt Webb round the outside. Scott Bugner managed to be latest on the brakes out of all the drivers getting towards that chicane. Matt Webb tried to get that inside covered, but instead got a little bit of a bobble, ended up running wide, and that pushed him all the way across the track. And I don't know whether there was collision with another driver on the exit, which has caused him to drop so far back down that pack. Oh, there's Jack Mack with a spin on the exit as well. That's really unfortunate. Just lit up that inside wheel, I'd imagine, and that's continued the rotation. And you can see rejoined just ahead of Kenny Press there in the other Primera. Paul Zanetechi with a move looking like round the outside of Mick Sutton. That's a very brave move through there, isn't it, Jack?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I could never even go flat through there, let alone go 2 by 2. It's absolutely terrifying. So the order as it stands, going through Church for the second time, is Jordan Brennan, Scott Bugner, Sutton, Fletcher, Taylor and Dadswell, your top 6. Carl Felvis and Paul Zanatachi are actually the 2 drivers who we're focusing on, but further up, there is going to be a little bit of a change for the order as Dadswell goes past Nicky Taylor and gets the position made as well. So Taylor going to have to settle for 6th at the moment as Dadswell goes into 5th. Altitude Esports are now 4th and 5th. But Mick Sutton has done extraordinarily well, to be fair, hasn't he, Dave, to not only avoid all the action and all the upset, but to get himself into 3rd place. It's a brilliant drive by him.
Yeah, phenomenal performance at the moment. I mean, you're looking at Mark Fletcher, Tom Dadswell. These are drivers that are absolutely at the top of esports games. And you've got Mick Sutton, who is an academy driver, and that's not to take it away from him. A great driver in himself, but still admit he's still learning a few different traits here and there. But 3rd place overall. I mean, phenomenal drive so far. Very, very strong performance. Well done, Mick Sutton.
Speaking of strong performances, Jordan Brennan just putting in another purple Sector 1, and thanks to the fact that he doesn't even have any slipstream, that is quite astonishing, really, and he's about a 10th quicker than the likes of Bugner and Sutton as well in Sector 2, so Jordan Brennan absolutely flying. Speaking of flying, Dadswell on Nicky Taylor here. Taylor got back into 5th place, so Dadswell's not having any of it, though, as they're going 2 by 2. Carl Felvis, he's only 14. How's his maturity going into this one? He's going to have to measure it all up. We know Carl is actually mature beyond his years, really, but there's a cut by Nicky Taylor to keep hold of that 5th position. Fletcher and Mick Sutton's gone somewhere. Mick Sutton is off into the wall, potentially. Yes, he is. You couldn't see him in the background, but Mick Sutton into the wall, and that's just how hard that rear complex is, isn't it, Dave? It's just so unforgiving.
I mean, honestly, gutting there for Mick Sutton. I would imagine that's probably a bounce on the exit curb there, and it's just made him bounce up, run wide, and hit that tyre wall there on the left-hand side. It was a cut there by Nicky Taylor, but to me, that I think it was just caught off screen there. I believe he did actually give the place back to Dadswell, and then managed to re-overtake him again. Very sorry if that isn't what's happened, but I think that might have been the case. That's basically allowed him to get back past Dadswell and actually gap Kyle Felvis, which is the big thing. He's gapped his competitor. And Paul Zanetechi here, another silver driver, battling for this silver. Well, he's actually currently now 3rd in the podium position for silver. Now Mick Sutton's had that incident, but driving very, very well and looking very racy indeed.
Yeah, Rich Hayden, the race director and owner of VRRC, has called me out for the curse of the commentator, and we do all know that in racing, it is always the commentator's fault. So I hold my hand up there, Mr. Bugner. Mr. Sutton, I do apologise. Hopefully he'll be back out in race 2. And of course, full reverse grid. If Sutton can hold on to the pace that he's been showing, you never know. A race victory might be on the cards in race 2. Felvis and Zanatachi. Then Zanatachi has actually gotten past on Felvis, but as they come into the first complex, turn 3, 4, and 5, he's sort of nicely hunkered up behind the other driver, isn't he? Now, Dave, going through Noble and Goodwood, which are the next 2 corners, really, flat left and a flat right, as pretty much everything is around Thruxton, you don't really want to be going too wide, so you want to measure up a move, maybe even coming out of Church would be the safest, but we've seen people go into Church, also 2 by 2.
Yeah, for me, Goodwood's one of them corners where, and actually, you can put a fair risky move on, but the option's there. The line going into it is relatively middle of the road. Try and grab a late apex and then pick the throttle up. Now, you can use that as an advantage because you know more or less what the driver in front is going to do to get a good lap time. And I tell you what, I think someone is in the wall in the last chicane looking at the timing screen. Simon Thorpe is in the wall, so let's hope that doesn't cause any carnage with these drivers that are starting to get through the pack here. It looks relatively clear as Kyle Felvers has come through there, so I believe Simon Thorpe must be back in the pits now. As I was saying before, we're in a scenario. I can't remember what I was saying before, actually, Jack. It's just gone there as I was saying that.
No worries. I mean, I was just about to comment on the difference in line going into the final chicane as well, really, because obviously we were on board of Felvers, who went for a wider entry line to try and straighten up the entire thing, and just ahead of him, Zanatachi went for a really narrow braking zone just to get the turning done, I suppose. Zanatachi came out of it so much quicker than Felvers, so there is variation in lines. You can sort of give it a good go, shall we say, in either one, and that is sort of the beauty of Thruxton, really. It is a course and it's a track where if the slipstream's strong, you can overtake, as Taylor and Fletcher are showing now. So this is Taylor, by the way, silver class driver Taylor, going door to door and wheel to wheel, in fact, with Mark Fletcher, another one of the gold drivers. And Taylor, we know he loves to get his elbows out. We know he likes to get his wing mirrors all very long, and a little bit of contact he's not afraid of either. But look, as they go through the final section, Taylor again cuts the corner though, and Dadswell, looking at all this action, will probably be thinking that that's maybe a little bit cheeky then, because that's the second time he's done that in the last 8 minutes. So I don't know, we'll potentially have to have a little look at that. But here comes Fletcher on Taylor. Taylor a little bit slow through the first corner, and I think Fletcher's going to have that mace move done and dusted. And the Altitude Esports driver of Dadswell wanted to follow, but couldn't quite hack it. So Zanatechi's caught up and is able to have a go as well. But I think that must mean that we have lost Kyle Felvers somewhere, who's dropped down to 12th.
Yes, I didn't catch where Kyle Felvers went there, but that, to me, that definitely looked like Nicky Taylor lifted out that throttle to let Mark Fletcher get back past after gaining an advantage through the chicane. So, it's one of them things, 2 cars through that last chicane doesn't work. If you do find a driver on the inside, the safest option really is to cut it, make sure you get out the way and give that place back in a safe opportunity. So I hope, that to me is what that looked like happening. What that has meant is Dadswell now has got the run back on Taylor, and now this is back on a battle for 4th and 5th instead of originally it was 3rd and 4th. So was that maybe a move that Nicky Taylor didn't necessarily need to go for into that last chicane? I believe it looks like Felvers might have had a collision there going through the chicane on that previous lap, hence why he dropped so far down on that grid. And also, I do remember now, I was currently saying when I forgot my train of thought, going up into Goodwood, you've got a driver on the middle, and it's a really good opportunity. If you know the driver's going to do that, do a good lap time, throw up a move up the inside, be a little bit later on the brakes, and just hang on the apex, and it'll just stop that driver getting a run on the exit. So a really good overtaking opportunity for the Brave.
Smith ends up off the circuit, having to rejoin into 10th position. I'm just thinking looking at a few drivers, and we're on board with one of them actually, who's potentially, you could argue, on a recovery drive now. Mick Sutton in 14th, not doing too badly, but obviously nowhere near the heights that he was hoping to get to before. Jack McIntyre in 7th is another one who has done really well. Obviously, we saw him get spit out a little bit early on in the race as Scott Thorne just looks like he's losing the rear end there. How many stabs at the rat there do you want for Thorne? And unfortunately, Kenny Press goes off and into the wall as well, which is never something you particularly enjoy seeing. Unfortunately for Kenny Press there, but Thorne, that's the problem. It's a good trade. Thruxton's hard, really, what I'm trying to say here, Dave. Thruxton's a difficult circuit, and one of the things that makes it difficult is a lot of the turning, a lot of the braking zones are completely blind, but we'll get back to that point in a minute, because Nicky Taylor is in 7th place after being, halfway facing the wrong way on the circuit, and is running really wide now. Is there damage on that car, potentially?
He'll have dirt on his tyres there, so probably the worst section of track to have dirt on the tyres is going into that first complex where change direction is absolutely crucial. So he lost quite a little bit of time through there. It's allowed Webb to get past through. You can see Taylor didn't really bother defending that hard there because there wasn't really any point. He had no grip. And actually, let's see when he gets on that straight. Let's see if that steering wheel actually looks like it's pointing straight. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad, so I don't think there's too much damage on the car. It's just going to sacrifice them positions that it's cost, and also the tyres should be about clean now as well, so he should be getting back up to pace. He's got Luke Hobson not too far off the back of him. Actually, this might be in the slipstream, and in fact it is. Oh. Look at the slipstream effect down there, straight past Nicky Taylor. So maybe Taylor's sustained some aero damage maybe on his car. He definitely doesn't look quite as racy as maybe he once was.
Yeah, well, another driver that I was actually going to comment on as well about the recovering drivers is actually Webb. I mean, he was battling for top 2 or 3. Now in 7th position, so himself and McIntyre doing a really good job, and obviously Nicky Taylor has fallen behind both of them, and is that Thorn? It is, so it's Thorn again, unfortunately, facing the wrong way, and it's proving a little bit of a tough time for him, shall we say. Zanatachi doing a brilliant job in the silver category, obviously with Nicky Taylor falling back, is now leading the silver category. You'd be forgiven for thinking that Jordan Brennan hadn't turned up tonight, unless you look at the top left of your screen, because he is leading this race by a good 9 odd seconds. And the fact that Bugner hasn't really put a foot wrong shows the pace that Brennan has over everyone else here tonight. Really, it is quite astonishing. I think these cars really suit him down to the ground as Carl Felvers goes past Regan, nice and easily really there, isn't it? A nice slip up the inside. The room was given to him there, Dave, and he took it gratefully. Yeah,
exactly that. Looking at Brennan, nearly a 10-second advantage as well. Actually, we'll go back to this battle here currently. So that is that job done? And just as I caught on the corner of my eye, I was distracted because Nicky Taylor looked very sideways there. Has he managed to get through that chicane? Blinking heck, that was a great effort. I thought, no doubt, that looked like Nicky Taylor was sideways into the wall at the start of the pit lane. Nicky Taylor managed to get through that complex there, and I tell you what, this is bringing Kyle Felvers right back into this battle for the silver class, when you remember at the start it was looking like he was a lot further back down the grid. Now we've got this Kyle Felvers, Nicky Taylor, and Mick Sutton isn't too far off the back of this train. This could be a really, really good battle for the silver class.
Yeah, with 6 odd minutes to go, pretty much. Carl Felvers goes past Nicky Taylor, and you're right, this is pretty much now a completely separate gold and silver race, isn't it? Apart from Paul Zanatachi, who hasn't read the script, but someone else who wasn't reading the script, or maybe he was reading something, and that's why he flew off the circuit there in the background, was Mick Sutton. Mick Sutton off the racing line, off the racing circuit, shall we say, as we probably focus a little bit further back, as Nicky Taylor's been overtaken by Regan and Hobson. But Regan, Hobson, and Taylor make contact with each other as they fly each other around. In fact, Beard goes through without a care in the world, but Hobson, Taylor, and Regan, well, I think it wasn't me this time for the curse of the commentators, Rich. It was Dave. He said about the good race, and he said about the 6-car train.
I mean, yeah. I said it was going to be a battle, and a battle it definitely was. I don't think I've actually seen cars quite that far off the track around Thruxton. I think they were almost going backwards on the track on the other side, but
they were halfway to Stonehenge. They were going sightseeing.
That's one of them corners. If any corner you don't want it to go wrong on, Church absolutely flat through there, and you had 2 drivers going very, very sideways, but there's not really much the drivers behind can do to avoid that. You're going through there so committed. If you hit the brakes, all that's going to do is have either rotation or understeer. So not a very nice sight to see that, and a shame that wasn't a better battle there in the silver class. Yeah, we'll move forward on to Paul Zanatachi, who is leading the silver class by an absolute mile here at Thruxton. It's just a case of just driving within himself. He's managed to find himself in clear air. Yeah, very, very impressive drive indeed here, I think.
Yeah, he'll be enjoying himself out there, really, won't he? Basically, an AM racing with the pros, in essence, isn't it? Obviously, a silver racing with the gold. And as I said, he'll be very much enjoying himself. Easy in the knowledge that he doesn't really need to put the pressure on Dadswell and Fletcher, because he's going to have the points in the bag, because McIntyre, Webb, and Smith, 6th, 7th, and 8th, are all gold drivers, and Felvers is way back, only just crossed the start-finish line. So, yeah, I'm sure he'll be thoroughly enjoying himself. And obviously, Dadswell and Fletcher, they probably know that they're not going to necessarily catch the 6 seconds up to Scott Bugner, or even the 16 seconds up to Jordan Brennan, so they might as well just take home the points that they can. There is no team championship, Dave, which means realistically they will work together, but only to a certain extent. The last thing you want to do, if there's nothing really to play for, is to take each other off, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that is the big no-no in racing, isn't it? Even if there isn't a team standings, teammates don't take each other out. And I think everyone probably remember the famous Matt Neal and Gordon Shedden incident. I believe it was Alton Park, wasn't it, Jack? Where very very few laps from the end, if not the lap, and going into the last corner, and it basically ended up with two Halfords cars in the gravel trap, which I can imagine didn't go very well down in the team truck. But yeah, Dadswell and Fletcher doing a very good job, exactly what they wanted to do, putting altitude on the podium, and you've got Dadswell there as a little bit of a buffer for Mark Fletcher as well there, just defending that podium position. Not saying he's not pushing it all, but at least Mark Fletcher knows he's not going to do anything stupid and take the back of his car off. So very, very good performance there by Altitude Esports.
Yeah, well, of course, they had the double podium at Donington as well last week, didn't they?
Yeah.
And that's why they're second and third in the championship. And Scott Bugner will do a good job. He didn't have the Donington he was hoping for. It looks like Phil Regan isn't having the Thruxton that he was hoping for, and down in 14th place. Thorne is back out there in 12th, to be fair, doing a good job. Weston, again, another one of these drivers that didn't really seem to have the look in race 1 here. But of course, we have to start thinking about race 2, Dave. And we mentioned it a couple of times, but it's a full reverse grid. It's not the top 10 like we used to. It's the full reverse grid. For anybody who is, I think, on the leading lap or who's actively finished the race. So the likes of Hobson and Thorpe in the pit lane at the moment won't be able to partake in the pole position, but Nicky Taylor would in 16th.
Yeah, exactly that. So Nicky Taylor, I believe, did go back to the pits just because it looked like he had some very, very serious steering damage after that incident. But he's brought himself back out, knowing that in the reverse grid race, because he's a finisher, he'll start at the front of the next race. So I believe that's the case, unless if he doesn't actually manage to get to the line and complete the lap of the leading driver. So we'll wait and see whether that is the way forward here. Otherwise, that means the pole lap or the first position for the reverse grid could end up going to Regan. But we'll wait and see what happens. It could be Taylor, it could be Regan. But yeah, this plays havoc for the drivers like Bugner, for Brennan, for Fletcher, because it means they're all the way at the back of the grid with 16 cars to get through instead of the usual 10. So really, really hard and really throws things up for a championship standard. We haven't really touched upon this much at all. Bugner actually in the Primera doing a very, very impressive drive indeed there. Sat in second place. We see Mick Sutton off on the exit of the first complex. Here's Ashley Beard in the slipstream of the back of Kyle Felvers. There's not much defending that can be done there when it's such a significant amount of overspeed. Will Beard managed to get on the brakes nicely to defend that line. It looks a bit squirrely. Is it a little bit deep? It isn't. He's a little bit deep into that apex, and this is going to allow Kyle to get right in that slipstream. Will he manage to put a move into turn 1? It's not a good option from there, not for a dive, not with the speed he carry in. But this is looking very, very decent from Kyle Felvers to try and have a possible lunge back on the bar of Ashley Beard. But look at how late he was on the brakes. He's managed to get that stopped, and Ashley Beard driving very, very well indeed.
Yeah, a good battle here for the top 10, isn't it? It's a shame, really, for these drivers that it isn't going to be for a reverse grid pole, isn't it? Really?
It is really, yeah.
They're fighting as if that's exactly what they're fighting for, but it's still a really good race, and hopefully, although the racing hasn't necessarily gone the way that they were hoping for, hopefully they're enjoying this one. Nonetheless, Nicky Taylor, he is a lap down, so I'm just going to ask if the powers that be, i.e. Rich, although we are pretty much only in 10 seconds left to go, just to confirm who's going to be on pole position. But I suppose we'll probably know in about 10 minutes time anyway, because we're going to have the grid for race 2. So if you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, then please don't go anywhere. Make sure you keep it pinned to wherever you're watching this for the Power Max Super Touring Championship, powered by VRRC. We're going to have an absolutely stellar second race as Brennan gets on the back end a little bit out there, but the Volvo, he's driven absolutely sensational, hasn't he? And a lot of tracks around the UK are old, disused aircraft. Oh my god, airports, there we go. I almost forgot what the word was there. Thruxton is one of the very few that is actually still active airport, and well, Jordan Brennan has certainly taken off here tonight, hasn't he? He's absolutely flown through. No pressure on him whatsoever from start to finish. His qualifying was excellent. His race has been even better, and Jordan Brennan Championship leader will retain and extend his championship lead as he crosses the line to take the victory here at Thruxton for race 1 of the evening. Scott Bugner with a very well-deserved second place as well. Equally hasn't put a foot wrong. Didn't quite have the ultimate pace of Brennan, but did a brilliant job to take home that podium. And then we've got Fletcher and Dadswell coming across the line. And then, more importantly for the silver category, I suppose, is Paul Zanetechi taking the victory for the silvers. And I tell you what, Dave, if that's not setting up an absolute grandstand second race, then I don't know what will.
Yeah, it's looking really quite good. Yeah, phenomenal performance from them drivers. Interesting enough, looking at the lap times, Jordan Brennan with such a big buffer there, not really having to put the lap times in, that you would look at and think is a win and drive. You know, nearly 2 seconds off what he was doing in qualifying, but driving for exactly what he needed to do. He had no pressure from behind. Just make sure you bring it home and job done.
Absolutely, but I believe you've got a few drivers to have a chat to. But just before we do, I'd like to say a big thank you and welcome to all of the people watching in the Facebook, the YouTube, and the Twitch stratosphere, wherever you're watching this from. An absolute pleasure hosting you tonight, and we have the driver of the day to discuss as well a little later on. So please do start having a little bit of a think about who exactly you think is driver of the day from that race 1 and also the race 2 that is to come. But Dave, first you got some podium sitters.
Yeah, we do indeed, and we'll jump straight to our first place position for silver class. Paul Zanetechi, a great drive out there and managed to get the clear air and bring home the win.
Yeah, sort of Moses parted the waves a little bit there. I mean, I got a few people got past me at the start of the race, and then they seemed to get involved in incidents and just take themselves out of the race, and I was quite happy just to sit behind the outer 2 boys and wait for the end of the race. So yeah, as far compared to last week, that was much easier, but yeah, pleased with the pace in the car and good first race, so see how this one goes.
Well, I've just noticed you've only got a minute before race 2. I don't really know what's quite happened there, but we'll try and interview you boys after race 2 finishes anyway. Huge congratulations everyone on the podium, and we'll get you in the race and let you crack on.
I'm normally relying on you taking about a 5-minute interview to have a drink and go to the toilet, Dave, but we have none of those antics tonight. We're going to have to get straight into it, aren't we? So it is confirmed, by the looks of it, it's Paul Zanetechi on pole position, which he finished in 5th, so that's a bit of an interesting one. At the back end of the field, who have we got? We got Thorpe and Hobson, Preston, Taylor, so I think we may have had a slight change in plan, potentially, on the reverse grid, but we're going to roll with it. It's a bit of top 5 reverse grid by the looks of it, because Brennan is starting in 5th, and Zanetechi starting in 1st place. So it won't be quite the test that we were expecting for Brennan, but it still will be having to get through potentially some quick cars around him. Keep an eye on Smith as well, who's sat there in 4th place, I believe, in the BMW. The rear-wheel drive cars will absolutely be flying off the grid, but as the lights come on, the engine notes rise, and we will be racing for the 2nd time on the Power Max Super Touring Championship, and it's an absolutely flying start. I believe that's from Fletcher and Dadswell. Zanetechi getting caught there, not able to come off the clutch quick enough, almost making it 3-4 wide as they come out the first corner. But it is Dadswell who takes the lead. Fletcher, McIntyre, Bugner, Zanetechi, Smith, and Webb going into the first complex for the first time. They hit the brakes. Everybody has cold tyres, everybody has cold brakes, remember, so hopefully they'll keep that in mind as they try and apply the power and straighten the car up as they go out onto the flat out section of the track. Even in cold tyres, it's absolutely flat through Noble, Goodwood and Church and into the final complex. So let's see how they handle that with everybody gathered around them as well for the 2nd time. Practice can't prepare you for this. Only race preparation can prepare you for this sort of close proximity racing we've got here tonight.
Yeah, what a great start that was. A really clean start from the drivers up front. As you can see, McIntyre's managed to make up a good, decent amount of positions. Already under attack here by Bugner with huge commitment through Church. And this is now 4 or 5 wide going into the last chicane. So, Jack, do your best to try and negotiate this one.
Oh, I was hoping you wouldn't pass over to me then, but Webb, Zanetechi and McIntyre all hitting the brakes around about the same time, but it looks like McIntyre and Zanetechi's actually just about held on. I think that was Nicky Taylor yet again cutting the final complex, but he's been good sporting so far. I'm sure he'll come off the throttle a little bit to allow the drivers around him just to pull up ahead. Having said that, he's actually going wheel to wheel with Ashley Beard. McIntyre loses 2 positions from Brennan and Felvers, and Nicky Taylor still going side by side with Ashley Baird, who we saw getting his elbows out a little bit earlier in race 1 with Carl Felbus. Speaking a little bit further back is Mick Sutton up to 11th place on Thorne, and Smith dropping down to 13th. Been a frantic first couple of laps for a lot of these drivers. Dadswell, though, is leading the way. Fletcher, Bugner, Webb, Zanatachi, and then Jordan Brennan in 6th.
Yeah, so I tell you what, it's interesting to see Brennan hasn't managed to really make the progress through the grid that we would maybe have expected to see after his race 1 dominance. Paul Zanatachi doing exactly again what he did in race 1, a great showing so far, but Bugner putting that early pressure on, getting them positioned through. But it's the Altitude eSports boys in 1st and 2nd place. This is where they can really work together, use that slipstream, work as a team, maybe a little bit of bumping on the straight just to carry that momentum. But this is a great position for these boys to be in.
Yeah, exactly. And just like we mentioned in race 1, until they start getting a little bit of pressure from the likes of Scott Bugner, Webb and Brennan, who's just gone through on Zanatachi, by the looks of it, they won't be fighting each other too hard. They'll just be trying to push each other as hard as possible, won't they? Trying to extract all the lap times that they can out of each other, because we heard Fletcher in the interview while he was live in qualifying, Dave, and he was quite relaxed about the lap times they were able to achieve, but he just knew that they weren't as quick as the likes of Brennan, so they've got to take this massive advantage that they have and try and just convert it into track space between himself and Brennan, who has got to be the favourite for the biggest threat, especially as it was only a top 5 reverse grid, which we think is potentially a simulator glitch maybe with the servers, unfortunately. So apologies out there for anybody who's wondering what's going on. I think there's just a touch of a glitch with the server, but we'll try and get it sorted. Wide. Carl Felbus is going very wide after racing with Nicky Taylor. Felbus came into the interview during qualifying and said that he enjoys racing with Nicky, and I'm sure there won't be any bad blood after that one. It just looked like there was 2 drivers going for a very flat-out, fast bit of track, and unfortunately Felbus was on the outside of it. Here comes Sutton, another Academy graduate, and Thorne going 3 wide down into the braking zone. There's inevitably going to be a bit of contact, but one of them, Felbus, ends up braking a touch early, and actually that's the best option. He broke out his braking zone, and then everybody else sort of trying to overshoot the corner and ended up falling behind him. So really good driving there by Felbus. Sutton and Smith live to fight another day, but how long are they going to have until they find Jack McIntyre stranded across the racing line? He's spawned back to the pits very quickly by the looks of it, so they won't have to encounter him. But that is a huge hit for McIntyre, whose series just isn't going well, Dave.
It isn't. It just looks like he doesn't quite have the balance of that BMW underneath at the moment. It takes a little bit of time just to try and dial it in. That's not to say that's what that was. That might have been contact with another driver or pushed wide on the grass. We didn't see that. Turn 1 in them cars is ridiculously fast. These cars, for all the 90s era cars, running 300 horsepower, super lightweight, they are seriously fast motors. So any chance of clipping them grass or losing the back end of the car, and you know, you've got to react that quickly to it going wrong. Sometimes it's just not physically possible. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens there. Meanwhile, further up the grid, we've got battles everywhere going on at the moment. We've got Buckner that looks like he's really starting to make headway onto the back of Fletcher. Will Fletcher maybe get past Dadswell here and go, you know what, I think I've got a little bit more pace here? Or is Dadswell going, you know what, I actually think I can hold this my own. You're not necessarily closing, so I'm going to keep the lead and really try and open the gap up. But if they don't do something together, Bugner is looking like he's really going to close that gap pretty soon.
I was going to say, if they start disagreeing about what the strategy should be, that's when it starts getting a little bit tasty, and that's probably what Bugner is hoping for, because I think Fletcher, who's now hunkered up right behind his teammate, I think Fletcher will probably be thinking, I've got a little bit more pace here, but Dadswell obviously won't want to give up the race lead and put himself under pressure from Bugner, because around here, Thruxton, it's not so easy just to swap positions. There's no nice, wide, easy braking zones or anything like that. If Dadswell was to come off the throttle or hit a brake early or anything like that, Bugner will be launching himself right up the inside of him, along with Fletcher as well. So it's going to potentially ruin both of their runs if they decide to start tripping over each other, the Altitude eSports drivers, that is. Brennan, I don't know if he's just toying with them or he's just giving them half the race maybe advantage, but he hasn't seemed to be putting in the lap times that he was hoping for or that we've been seeing from him before either. In fact, Fletcher is actually the one with the purple sector 2, Webb purple sector 1, and then Brennan with the purple sector 3. So ultimately, between the three of them, making a very quick lap time. But nobody really shaking a leg at this race victory just yet, as there's a lunge, more of a speculative look up the inside by Scott Thorne there on Smith, but again, nothing happening quite yet.
No, not yet. I just noticed there, Jordan Brennan last lap, actually just as you said it, then crossed the line to put the fastest lap on the board there with a 12.7. But a really impressive bit, and I can't believe I'm quite seeing this, Paul Zanetechi, a silver driver, in behind Brennan, doing a 12.9, so a silver driver within 2/10 of the top gold driver. Absolutely phenomenal driving from, I believe, that Oscar-inspired, I'm sure that's the name that's written on his pillar, the Oscar-inspired Volvo S40 Paul Zanetechi.
Yeah, Bugner coming up the backside of Fletcher now. The two Altitude eSports drivers didn't swap positions. It's too late now as well, because Bugner is right there and is very interested in taking a race victory. He's already got a second place tonight. He's trying to slot himself into that same position. He makes Fletcher run very wide, but Fletcher will have the inside for the left-hander. But if Bugner manages to pull this off through the right, it's going to be one of the moves of the day. He doesn't quite manage to get it sorted. Fletcher lives to fight. Dadswell lives to just try and pull as much as he can a gap between himself and his teammate, because he knows what's coming. If these drivers get past Fletcher, there's no stopping them coming for him, and he probably knows as well he doesn't have the qualifying pace. He doesn't have the out-and-out pace to hold on for a full 11.5 minutes. So he's going to probably pray to Fletcher that he just holds on to that second place for as long as humanly possible as they go through church. Proper place to pray, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, going back to that with Bugner, actually, I was going to say that let's go forward to Bugner as he puts a move up the inside of Fletcher into the chicane. Has he got it stopped for the left-hander? We can't quite see, but it's looking good. Bugner up through into second place. And look, Brennan all over the back here of Webb. Is he going to try around the outside of turn one? That is very brave and respecting of the driver on the inside. He's managed to make the commitment and the job done. Will Webb manage to put a nose up the inside? He's not. I'd imagine Webb's probably looking at this and going, right, I know Brennan's going quicker. Let's go with him, follow him, and this could get me on the podium as well.
Yeah, but equally, I'm sure Dadswell, Bugner, Fletcher probably won't be thanking him for letting him through, though, will they? Because obviously he's now a man on a mission. He's in fourth. He'll be wanting a podium, and he'll be wanting a first place, really. So one of these guys in front of him is going to be the victim here. And hopefully, no contact, obviously, but still, one of them is going to end up off the podium if Brennan has anything to say about it. Paul Zanetechi ahead of Nicky Taylor by quite a substantial margin, 1.8 seconds. To lead the silver category, and what has been an absolutely excellent evening for himself. And if he's got anything to say about it, he'll be trying to follow Webb up ahead of him as Beard comes off and Felvis and Sutton both go through. So we've got a top 5 of gold, and then we've got the next 4 of silvers. And in fact, Beard, it looks like he's going to pull off the circuit and potentially drive back to the pit lane. I'm not sure if he's got any damage there, maybe a bit of suspension damage. I'm not entirely sure, but he didn't seem keen to try and rejoin the track, put it that way.
Yeah, he didn't. Yeah, really hard to see. Yeah, again, we don't know whether it was any sort of collision there. I believe he's managed to just about get going. Again, Luke Hobson seems to be off the track as well, so maybe it was a collision between them, maybe, not quite sure. But this is the battle we're looking at. Currently, Jordan Brennan trying to get past Fletcher. This is going to be a great battle because Fletcher's going to really want to hold onto this advantage he's got. If these boys hold themselves up, though, look who's in the background. Webb's there also want this position, but actually Paul Zanetechi could be a worry for these boys too.
Yeah, and of course we have to start thinking, as we're about to hit 9 minutes left of the race, about driver of the day. We mentioned it just before race number 2 started, but that is something that obviously we want your guys' input as well. So you've got 9 minutes. Stick who you think is driver of the day down in the chat. For me, you have to look pretty hard not to think of Jordan Brennan and Scott Bugner, to be honest, as Brennan goes for the racing move on Fletcher to get into that podium position. So Fletcher losing out on another place, unfortunately, goes from second down to fourth in a matter of about 7 minutes.
Well,
sorry, not 7 minutes, 4 minutes. The reason why I was so shocked is because we have a driver off the circuit. I'm not entirely sure who it is, to be honest. It looks like it's Scott Thorpe, which is a big shame, really. Unfortunately for Thorpe, ends up off the circuit, but I think he was already down in 15th place and looks like a very damaged car to boot as well. So, Dadswell, Bugner, then Brennan. Bugner really has to get a move on if he's got any hope in to potentially taking a race victory here because he has to get past Dadswell and then hope that Dadswell can be a thorn in the side of Brennan for as long as humanly possible. But I just mentioned about driver of the day, Dave. Obviously, we want everybody's input and everything like that. But from my perspective, Brennan has been... It's unusual that we give it to the race winner. And at Donington, he was the quickest and he got the race victories and everything like that. And he did a very good job. But when you're so utterly dominant at a racetrack, it's pretty hard to look past them.
Yeah, it's really hard. I want to see what people really say first for driver of the day. But for me, Bugner has done an absolutely phenomenal job. Brennan, fantastic drive as well.
Zanetachi.
Paul Zanetachi, top of silver, being absolutely dominant as well. So we've got a few drivers in there. You know, it's not to say if there's moves or a driving style that you've liked from another driver, he's perfectly valid and open for also a drive of the day round. So make sure you get commenting on who's impressed you, who have you looked at and gone, you know what? Yes, he hasn't won the race, or he's maybe not as high up as some of the other drivers, but he deserves it. He's put a great performance in, and he's really showed his class. Currently saying that, Scott Bugner very much showing his class at the moment, now really battling for the lead, because he knows if he can't get this job done soon, look at Brennan. He is fighting for this. But as Brennan comes in sideways, Bugner's got his lights on, Brennan's got his lights on. In fact, that looks like Bugner was having a little look on nose, but is this him starting to defend for Brennan? And this is going to mean that both lose time.
Yeah, well, I think Dadswell is a little bit like Max Verstappen at the weekend, isn't he? He knows full well what's coming. He's just going to try and hold off for as long as possible. But as they go through into the final section, it looks like Jordan Brennan is going to try and overtake Bugner, and he's just about hold on to the second place as well. Really good driving by the two of them, racing respect on show there, as well as Dadswell now look at his rearview mirrors and see another contender try and take the race victory off him. He probably knows this one's going to be a little bit more difficult to try and defend from. Both drivers now really attacking on Dadswell, and I'm sure will be hoping that Bugner does the potentially slightly stupid thing and try and attack Brennan more than just follow him through to take that second place. But of course, Bugner will want a race victory, Dave, won't he? He want the opportunity to take that race victory for himself. 6 minutes to go. How long can Dadswell hold off? I mean, I suppose I could say that and it'll be instantly taken away, but that is a Thorn looking the wrong way yet again. I know Adrian Felvis in the Facebook chat says Paul Zanetachi for driver of the day. Quite controversial, considering obviously Kyle's son, but and Kyle's dad even.
You know what?
Still,
that's great to see though, because he's respecting the fact that Paul Zanetachi here is. I'm not saying he's driving above the standard of what you'd expect, but I tell you what, for a silver driver, that probably means he's either new or he hasn't had the experience on the game yet or anything like that. He's doing an absolutely stellar job. He hasn't really dropped off the back look of this train of 6 cars. He's that green car just back there.
Yeah, and we've had a few comments in the YouTube chat as well, so agreeing with Paul Zanetachi. Obviously, we have the Jordan Brennan, Michelle Dunn says Jordan Brennan for driver of the day. And as I said before, it'd be hard to disagree with you, but at the moment, I am slightly swaying towards Paul Zanetachi. So in my opinion, between the two of them, both standouts in their classes today, it's been absolutely sensational stuff. But Dadswell has done brilliantly in this race too, hasn't he, really? I mean, he's held on for this long, lap after lap. He's been in the race lead since the start. He had to give an awful lot of respect, maybe not driver of the day, but an awful lot of respect going to the Altitude eSport driver here, because his teammate couldn't hold on for this long on second place. But he's doing a brilliant job here. Oh, speaking of Altitude eSports, Hobson, unfortunately, looking the wrong way halfway through the final section of the track there. So hopefully gets out the way nice and quickly, as Dadswell has Brennan breathing down his neck, who runs very wide through Church. That will ruin his run, unfortunately, as Fletcher now looks for an attack on Bugner as well. So Bugner just dropped off this little battle. I think Dadswell's really actually upped the ante a little bit. I think his last lap time has actually gone slightly quicker, and Brennan being held up just a touch here, but holding him up just in the right areas is Dadswell.
Yeah, you know what? It looks to me like Dadswell's one of these drivers that when you put the pressure on, when you start heating the things up, he really comes alive. I tell you what, the aggression here and the way he's just driving the car, he wants this win. He is not going to let Brennan pass without an absolute fight. In fact, for me, the sensible thing for Dadswell to do here is actually to really slow Brennan down and try and get him to battle super hard with Bugner, because you know how hungry Bugner is going to be for that second place. So this is where it really gets it can really mean tactics come into a play. And, you know, for me, Dadswell's got an option here of go, keep pushing, maybe bring Brennan with him and gap everyone else, or bring it the other way, hold him up and get them to all trip over each other. I'll probably go for the second option, but let's see what he does.
I was going to say, I think Brennan looking up the inside now. This is potentially a race-winning move here by Jordan Brennan, getting that slipstream, although Dadswell does lag just a bit as he lurched forward a touch, but Jordan Brennan takes that race lead with about 3 minutes to go. Dadswell, potentially the cork has been popped in because Bugner looking very aggressive on his rear end now as a back marker is rejoining the circuit. Hopefully sees who's fighting around him and just slams the brakes on, not getting in anybody's way. Webb and Fletcher nicely having a little battle as well, potentially having a little look at each other. But there is a new race leader, but it's the old race leader. Zanatachi comes together with Thorn, that back marker. Zanatachi keeps going, but is there going to be damage? That would be heartbreaking for the both of them, as Thorn, I'm sure, probably didn't mean for it to happen, just got caught up in the wrong place in the wrong time.
Yeah, it did indeed. It was a little bit out of shot again from what the stream could see, but it looked like Paul Zanatachi had some sort of coming together with Scott Thorne as he exited the pit lane. Let's hope there's no damage on the front of Paul's car. Be a really nasty way for the race to go. But I tell you what it is going to do is Nicky Taylor isn't going to be too far off the back of Zanatachi. As I'll tell you what, Scott Bugner, could you get any closer to the back of the bumper there of Dadswell's car up the inside into chicane? You know what, I think Dadswell's done a sensible thing there. He knew the job was done by Bugner up the inside. Instead, he's backed out of it a little bit, and that's just meant he's guaranteed the fact he hasn't lost loads of time, and he's still holding on to third place.
Yeah, and we can't really argue with the results that are being put on your screen at the moment, because all apart from Webb and Zanatachi, Zanatachi was in 5th place in race 1. It is how we finished in race 1. Brennan, Bugner, Dadswell and Fletcher. Potentially Fletcher and Dadswell were the other way round, to be fair, but it certainly was those two drivers in 3rd and 4th anyway. So, yeah, really good driving from everyone involved, it has to be said. And, well, with a minute to go, we have to settle this argument of the driver of the day. Dave, who's your vote going to be going for?
I think it's got to be PZ, Paul Zanatachi, as I've seen multiple comments all thinking the same sort of thing as me. Very, very high class of driving here, an all-round fantastic performance. I think for me, Paul Zanatachi has to have my vote.
Yeah, I think Hayden Phillips in the YouTube chat has made a decent point, to be fair, saying that Brennan has been shown pure pace and perfect consistency. You're absolutely right, and he gets the back end out as well, a little bit of showmanship. But at the end of the day, Brennan will be taking the championship points, and he's proven again today that he can do it on pretty much every single race. So I think the sort of driver of the day, we're looking for slightly more, I wouldn't say a surprise, Dave, but a little bit more of an X factor, something that sort of gets you on your seats, keeps you paying attention further back and everything like that. And for me, I think Zanatachi is equally close. So I think we'll probably go for Paul Zanatachi this time. And then I suppose we'll have to keep an eye on Jordan Brennan, as we always do, though, considering he is the championship leader.
Yeah, to me, it was such a close call, though. For me, Scott Bugner, you could have flipped a coin for it, really. Bugner also has done an absolutely phenomenal drive here at Thruxton. Just seems he's got that real sweet spot there with that Primera and the Thruxton track. He can put his car where he wants it, and he's looking really very, very competitive. Actually, I've done a commentator's curse. Bugner's lost it going out of Goodwood, it looked like. And I tell you what, that's put the Altitude Esports boys through into 2nd and 3rd place. What a disaster. What a shame from Bugner. Looking like that was a phenomenal result. Really unlucky there. In fact, Matt Webb's gone through as well. Oh, Bugner's gone back through on the time tower. So a real change of position there on the very last lap. Going forward, Brennan wins. Tom Dadswell in 2nd. Fletcher in 3rd, bringing up the podium for the Altitude boys. And look at that, Paul Zanatachi with nearly a photo finish going towards that last finish line, all against the pit wall. Fantastic drive from the both of them. Huge congratulations.
Yeah, that was stunningly close. Not entirely Not really sure how that went about it, but yeah, really good racing all round as well, and can't wait to speak to the drivers. But both the gold and silver categories, Dave, showing us that they can really get their elbows out, really start mixing it up. And I have to say, because it means that we're sort of focusing on 2 races, it gives us an opportunity to look back and focus on those other battles with real meaning as well, which obviously we love to see. It was unfortunate that the server sort of had a little bit of a sort of a brain fart, basically, and just did a reverse 5, but it still provided an absolutely brilliant race, and I believe you have some drivers to have a chat to.
We will indeed. First of all, we'll go to our P3 finisher. Maybe a little bit of unexpected, but it all kicked off. Mark Fletcher, P3 in the end. I guess you can't really complain with that altitude in 2nd and 3rd place on the grid yet again. Sorry we didn't get to talk to you after race 1, but for whatever reason, the time was a lot shorter than usual. But, I mean, fantastic, both race 1 and 2 result. Can't really complain, can you?
No, to be fair, it was a decent set of results. I don't think we had the quickest car. When I looked up at the end of race 1 and saw that Jordan was like 21 seconds up the road, I thought we've got pretty big issues coming into race 2. But yeah, fantastic drive from Jordan, and Paul top of silver ain't far behind us either. But yeah, no, great result for the team, and having 2 cars on the podium in 2 races, fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, a phenomenal result. You said, but altitude is relatively new to this game. It's your first proper series, so to bring up a double podium position and a great set of results from round 1 as well. A fantastic effort, and I think it's just going to be a case of you just get stronger and stronger going forward in this championship.
Yeah, exactly. We're learning new tracks. Definitely trying to get our heads around the setup. Again, another big week testing wise, but yeah, we're going to keep coming back and hopefully keep Jordan honest, at least in one of the races anyway.
Well, huge congratulations on the podium there, Mark, and looking forward to seeing what you and the team can do next time out.
Cheers, Dave. Speak to you soon.
I'll move forward on our 2nd place driver, Tom Dadswell. It was looking like such a strong start of the race, managing to hold off, and I was saying in the comms, you look like you're one of them drivers, when the ante's on and when the pressure's turned up, you really start delivering.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised with the starting on 2nd place. That threw me off a little bit.
So were we.
Yeah, got a great launch, got kind of first. Yeah, it was just about keeping everyone behind. I was struggling so much through the chicane. I had no idea how much I could use the track. And then I saw Jordan and I think it was Matt, and they were taking a lot more care than I was. So I think there was some time to be gained there. Yeah.
Well, it's still a phenomenal result though to bring it home in P2, and as I said to Mark, it all sort of kicked off again on that last lap, and it had a whole switch around when it looked like Scott Bugner ran wide going up into Goodwood. I take it you probably saw that better than we did, but was it just a case of he ran wide and it allowed you to get up the inside and then have the run down through Church?
Yeah, I think so. I think just got on the power a little bit too early. It's so easy to do around that corner.
It is. I mean, Thruxton's probably a track that is new to you as well. Yeah. I take it it's a bit of a case of you're probably looking forward to going back to a track that you're a little bit more familiar of.
Yeah, first time driving Thruxton was last week. Never even knew where the corners went before that. So yeah.
Well, I think definitely regarding that, Tom, it's a very, very strong finish for yourself. And as I said to Mark, looking forward to seeing what the team and yourself can do at the next round in this Super Touring Car Championship.
Great, thank you.
I'll move forward onto our P1 driver of the silver category. Paul Zanetechi also voted as our driver of the day by a lot of people on Facebook and YouTube, seeing the true standard of what you were doing out there. A little bit of a surprise, all the way up at P5 for a silver driver. Do you feel that as well, or do you just feel it was one of them rounds where it was just really clicking for you with the car?
I guess a little bit of both, to be honest. I did quite a bit of work on the setup of the car, and I seemed to find a lot of happy medium, sort of low speed acceleration and then the top end, which kind of gave me a bit of lap time, maybe over the silver guys. But I wasn't expecting to be that close to the golds in both races. yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. I had a little bit of a wobble right at the end, a couple of minutes to go. I'm not sure who it was, but heart in my mouth at that moment. But
I was going to touch upon that. We didn't see where it was. So whereabouts on the track was this?
So it's the T3, I think it is, the right-hander into the complex. I'm assuming it was a car that's being lapped, and he almost I went far left.
Oh yes,
was going to cut back across, and he drifted back across the front of me. In the braking zone, there's nowhere I could go, so I almost threw that race away then to Nicky. So
we did see that. Nicky Taylor looking very, very close to the back of you, and I tell you what, it was nearly a photo finish coming across the line there. Nicky Taylor just about getting onto the back of you, and that slipstream along the side of your car, you must have been thinking, just keep a hold of this, keep that gear going.
That's pretty much it. I thought he had it, to be honest. So yeah, it's tough to keep P1, but it's just racing, I suppose. So.
Well, as I said, phenomenal set of results today, really showing a high class of driving there, Paul, and also voted the fan favourite driver of the day on multiple platforms as well, so top job. Well done, mate.
Cheers, thank you very much, Dave.
I'll move forward on our P1 driver. I mean, what else can you say? Finding a sweet spot in the car, driving the wheels off it, driving it sideways everywhere, winning by over 10 seconds. Brennan, it was a pretty dominant performance, especially in race 1, but race 2 as well, managing to come back through the grid and getting a P1. But race 2 didn't actually look all plain sailing for you. You seemed to take quite a while to actually get your way through it.
Yeah, race 1 probably couldn't have gone any better. But then got into race 2, I got a good start, and then just got boxed in. I think we were three wide going into turn 1, and I was like, yeah, this ain't going to end well. We'll back out of this. And then I sort of got a bad run out of it as I clipped in the back of another car, and then I just got swamped into the chicane. So I think I was down to about 8th or 9th in the first lap. And then, from there on, I just struggled with the pace. I just overheated the front left and had no grip.
So would you say working in the pack, experience what the other drivers essentially experienced in the race, that's what helped you open up such a big gap in race 1? The fact that you could, measure the tyres a little bit, not work them too hard, and not have to push them in places in the race scenario, if you like, where it does start overheating.
Yeah, that's exactly what was happening. You could feel it through the chicanes. I was trying to get on it just a little bit early to get that better run.
Yeah.
You could just feel the tyres just going, and just watching the tyre temps creep up, and I'm like, oh, this isn't going to go well. But yeah, it was a good race, to be fair. It was a lot of fun with everyone. Everyone drove really well, to be fair. There's not much more I can done.
The last thing I was going to say was, it looked like you had an even bigger advantage going into Thruxton than you did at Donington. I think you just keep working on the car, just getting it a little bit sweeter and sweeter each time, and it seems to be really working and giving the other boys a real question mark and sort of a head itch to like, well, where's he finding that time?
Yeah, the setup's in a really good place at the minute. It's sort of just fine tuning it for each track. Obviously, Donny was the new setup, and then coming into this one, I've changed a couple of things on it, not much, but it's a good setup.
I thought you were nearly gonna let it slip what you changed then, but
no. We'll keep that to ourselves.
keep your cards close to your chest there. Huge congratulations, Jordan, on a fantastic performance here, and it's I mean, what else can you say? Phenomenal drive, and definitely were on the cards for one of the drivers of the day. So we'll see what you can do next time out, but yeah, let's see what you tinker with that car.
Cheers, thanks.
And there we go, Jack. I mean, what else can you see to Brennan? He knows fine well what he's gone and done out today is fairly phenomenal, really, and there's nothing much we can really say about that.
Nah, perfect day for him, isn't it, really? And that shows on the championship standings in front of you as well. So Brennan on 82 points, a long way ahead. What's that? 15 ahead of Fletcher in second, and we've only had 2 rounds, so those guys will certainly be feeling that one. But Dadswell and Fletcher, I'm sure, will be relatively happy with newcomers onto both the Assetto Corsa and VRRC as a whole. Second and third in the championship on gold is pretty good going. Scott Bugner did a brilliant job today, though, I think, Dave. He's really clawed himself back. I mean, I'm having a look at the Oh no, my standings have updated. I was about to say I'm having a look at the old standings. But he was sort of down labouring in about 6th or maybe 5th or 6th. So it doesn't look like that big a jump. But compared to how close he is to Dadswell, it is a big jump. And then if you look down at silver, Carl Belvers, 68 points. Now this is really where the things start to heat up, though, isn't it? Zanatachi now on 67 points. 1 point between them. So Bugner may be dominating the gold. It's not been quite as easy in the silver class.
No, it really hasn't. But you're right in what you're saying. Silver class is looking like it is down to the wire. But I tell you what, the way Paul Zanatachi's drove this afternoon, honestly, really, really strong performance. I wouldn't be surprised to see him near the top again of silver class going into the next round. So we'll keep an eye on that as well.
Yeah, and his car will be squeaky clean because, of course, he's got a Power Max balloting kit, hasn't he? So I'm sure that'll be probably worth at least 100th of a second. Right, I think it's probably about that time that we sign out, Dave, and sort of say goodbye. But before we do that, we have to remind our viewers of everything going on in the VRRC hemisphere, I suppose. Wednesday, the 17th of November at 7:20 p.m, i.e. tomorrow at 7:20 p.m, there is round 3 of the Clio Academy, which is held at Donington Park. I can't wait for it. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. The Clios have been sensationals in pretty much every series we've raced so far, and last week there was no exception there whatsoever. And of course, there's next week on the Super Touring Championship. There we go. We're at Snetterton 300 for the next round. So if you basically tuned in today and you tuned in on time, then you have nothing to worry about. All you have to do is hit the follow button or subscribe button, or wherever you're watching this from, and you'll be able to tune in next week at 7:30 as well for more VRRC Power Max Super Touring Championship. It's going to be brilliant over at Snetterton, one of my favourite circuits ever, to be honest. It's got a little bit of a mix of everything. But Dave, both with the Clios and the Super Touring Championship, there's no real better time to be getting involved with VRRC, is there?
There really isn't. There's stuff going on all the time. The grids are just getting bigger and bigger, and as you can see, the driving standards and the driving etiquette of the other drivers is all about respect. They all just want to be really, really good racing, hard racing, but really good standard of racing, and the most like real life it can possibly be. So yeah, definitely the place to be and get involved with some of the stuff we're doing.
Yeah, and of course, just very quickly, there isn't just AC, is there? There isn't just tonight and tomorrow, the Academy and the Super Touring. There's also Dirt Rally going on that I know you're heavily organising. Is the ACC, so it's of course at Competizione, sort of free races that are happening on I believe it's a Thursday as well. There's the mini championships coming up. There's loads more. I was about to let one slip then, but there's loads more championships on the horizon as we go into the winter period as well. So there's just loads of stuff going on. We've even got a Forza Horizon channel in the Discord now, haven't we, for people who are really into that sort of more casual console style of gaming. So if you're into anything out there and you just want to get connected with a few more like-minded people and maybe join a fun and respectful community, then please do get in touch with VRRC on any of our social media channels. Right, Dave, we're going to have to sign off. But thank you very much to everyone who's tuned in this evening, whether you've just been liking, watching, screaming at your screen, anything that you've been doing. Basically, if you've tuned in at all, it's been a pleasure hosting you this evening. Well done to all the drivers as well for putting on an absolutely fantastic show, and congratulations, not congratulations, that sounds weird, but thank you very much, and well done to our broadcaster Tom O'Farrell as well, as he always does a brilliant job. My name's been Jack Oliphant. Dave Marshall has joined me in the virtual commentary box, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Academy Clio Cup at Donington Park. Good night.
Happening between the two of them. The inside of Coates. Parker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.